the class, the debate. There wasn't a debate.
Thank you. Thank you, conference. Wow, what a welcome. Not bad for a runner-up, eh? Not too bad. I'll be honest though, conference, it was a hard campaign. And let me tell you something about an event that happened near the end. I held a meeting at a church in Sheffield. And I spoke, you might remember it, I spoke with my back to the altar. The altar was behind me. And when I sat down after what I thought was quite a rousing speech, the chair called the first question from a man at the back. He said, "Andy, I like what you've been saying, but do you realise you've been speaking for 20 minutes under a sign which says, 'Repent, JC is coming'?" Well, it's fair to say that I knew then it really wasn't going my way. Well, JC is here, and Labour is rebuilding, renewing, reviving. We're coming back stronger, and we need to, because we face ruthless opponents who think nothing of playing politics with the lives of vulnerable people, demonising anyone receiving benefits, describing desperate people as a swarm, like insects, dismissing the entire Muslim community for condoning extremism, in their words. Conference, this is what we are up against, a Tory party that seeks to divide us one from another. There is no dog whistle these Bullingdon boys won't blow. And the truth is, we've let them get away with far too much. We failed at times to take a stand for fear of ending up on the wrong side of the PR battle. Well, no more. This country needs a Labour Party, a principled Labour Party with the strength to call these Tories out. A party that puts principle before presentation. That's what we're going to be again. And it feels good, conference, doesn't it? It feels good. It's what your new shadow home team will always do, and I'm proud to introduce them to you today. Jack Dromey, Sarah Champion, Sir Keir Starmer and Lynn Brown. Conference, welcome the team. Principle before presentation, and we start with the most urgent situation of all. What is unfolding across Europe is the biggest crisis of its kind since the Second World War. And how we respond will define us as a generation. Conference, be proud. It was your party which forced the government to act. And join me in paying tribute to my predecessor, Yvette Cooper, who led the way. But the government's plans are nowhere near equal to the scale of this humanitarian catastrophe. They say they won't help those already here in Europe because they are the fittest and the strongest. Have they seen the TV images? People struggling over fields on crutches, in wheelchairs, parents carrying exhausted children for hundreds of miles. We can't turn our backs on this, can we? Britain didn't do it 75 years ago, and we shouldn't do it now. So I say this, Prime Minister, have compassion, help our neighbours, give people shelter in their hour of need. Show the world that this country still stands for higher ideals. And you know what? It's in our own interests. It would help build goodwill and get changes on EU migration ahead of the referendum. Conference, I want to be clear with you today about this. I believe changes are needed. I am setting myself a tough challenge in this job to reframe the debate about immigration and our approach to it. I make no bones about it. I am on a mission to win back those lost Labour voters from UKIP, not by copying them in any way, but by being true to our own values, Jeremy's vision of a social Europe, and rejecting the neoliberal free market approach of today. For too long, Labour has gone along with the idea that free movement on the current rules benefits everyone and affects all areas equally. Well, you know what? It's just not true. In places, it has benefited private companies more than people and communities. And the truth is this: free movement, as it currently works, is widening inequality. Yes, it has built the economic power of the big cities and the big centres, but it has also made life harder in our poorest communities, where the rules have been exploited to undercut people's wages, undermine their job security, and create a race to the bottom. And those same places get no extra funding to deal with the pressure that comes on primary schools, GPs, and housing. So no wonder they have felt neglected by us, because these are Labour communities that I'm talking about. The coming referendum presents a chance to change that. Let's seize it as an opportunity to put Labour back on the front foot and back in touch. Let's take on the right and their scapegoating rhetoric, which won't pay anybody's bills, feed anybody's kids, or protect anybody's job. Let's put forward our vision for a social Europe that puts people before profits, a floor beneath all workers. Let's welcome people here to work as we always have, but let's make it work for everyone with new EU rules to protect the going rate for skilled workers and stop undercutting of people's wages. Let's have direct EU funding for the places, those former industrial communities where the pressures are greatest. Common sense, practical changes, and I will go to Europe to argue for them. Because, you know why? They will free Labour to make the case for staying in with clarity and with confidence. And if we do that, we will win. Conference, there's another battle we need to fight closer to home for the safety of our communities. Right now, George Osborne is sharpening his knife. He is preparing an ideological spending review that will cut public services to the bone, and the police in particular. 12,000 frontline police officers have already gone. Crime starting to rise. Police cars already doubling as ambulances. Police cells as mental health beds. But Osborne plans to hack that safety net away. He wants to cut the police by at least 25% and by even more in Labour areas. Imagine what that will mean. Neighbourhood policing and PCSOs, a thing of the past. Crimes uninvestigated, calls unanswered, victims abandoned. All the progress on domestic violence under threat. In places, the thin blue line will be rubbed out completely. Theresa May talks of asking volunteers to fill the gaps. Well, I'm sorry, Home Secretary, but you're not on. Your part-time police force will put people at risk. So, Conference, the battle for our public services is right here and right now. And you know where my loyalties lie. I have shown you in the past how I fight for our National Health Service. And my message to our police today is this: I'm ready to do the same for you. Not just because I value you and your service to our communities and this country, but because I don't want to live in a society where we leave people to fend for themselves. I want this party to fight for our police as we have fought for our National Health Service, and that's what we're going to do, Conference. The future of policing, the safety of communities, is on the line. So Jack and I, together with our Labour PCCs, Police and Crime Commissioners, who are here to stay, we will mount a national campaign against the Tory police cuts. Of course, savings can always be found. The police say between 5 and 10% is doable over the Parliament. But Chancellor, go beyond that. And it won't just be Tory conference cheering you, it will be every burglar in the land. And I warn you now, we will hold you personally to account for what follows. Conference, there's one more thing that I want to say. A police service fit for the future requires honesty about its past. In recent years, we have learnt more about how we were governed in the 20th century. What we know isn't good, but we still don't know it all. We don't know the full extent of the collusion between senior police and press, and that's why the second inquiry recommended by Lord Leveson must go ahead. We won't know the full story of Hillsborough until we know what the same police force did to the miners in the aftermath of Orgreave. And to understand how an anti-trade union culture developed in parts of our police in the past, we need the full story about the false convictions and imprisonment of building workers in Shrewsbury. I want to say this to you today. I will make it my personal priority in this job to put the pieces of this jigsaw together alongside other historical injustices we have seen: child sexual abuse and exploitation, the blacklisting of workers, the abuse of stop and search powers against black and Asian young people. Why will I do this? Why am I going to do this? Because it's our story, the people's history, and they need to know it. It's a story of powerful elites riding roughshod over ordinary people. Today's police service has come a long way, and people will ask, why is this still relevant? Well, I'll tell you. A bill is going through Parliament forcing trade unionists to give 2 weeks' notice to the police before posting comments on social media. A country which doesn't face up to its past mistakes is destined to repeat them. So we'll fight this illiberal bill with all we've got. And we'll defend the Human Rights Act, which, had it been in place in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, could have stopped working people being treated like second-class citizens in their own country. And I say this to the government: no more delay. Give us the full truth about Shrewsbury. Give us the full truth about Orgreave. Justice demands it. We can only build a more equal society in this century when we know about the injustices of the last. Conference, I will fight in this job for justice for those to whom it has been denied, for the freedoms of our trade unions, for the police and the safety of our communities, for our country and its place in Europe. These are the new battles of our time. We will win them if we stand as one. I stand here before you today because I promised all of you that I would always put this party first. I've done that, and I now ask my colleagues to do the same. I say this, conference, to them. I say this to them. Get behind our new leader. Put this party first so that we can put the country first. A voice for the vulnerable, a party of principle. Let Labour be a light for truth, justice and compassion again. Thank you very much, conference.